If you're making goals and you're hitting them at 90% or higher or 70% or higher, then they're not big enough.
Welcome, everyone, to the Closing Table Podcast, real accounts from real estate professionals, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler, and today I'm sitting down with real estate agent Brooke Azimi with Azimi & Co. Brooke is in Southeast Michigan, and today we talk about her growing team at Azimi & Co. and how she's helped others start their real estate journeys. We talk about the market trends Brooke is seeing and how that's affecting first-time homebuyers. And then we dive into the nuances of protecting your time, protecting yourself, and protecting your information as a real estate agent who is always trying to connect with potential clients. That one is really juicy, so you're going to want to stick around and listen in. So without further ado, let's chat with Brooke. Brooke, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to hear all about your story. I would love to start it off with kind of your trajectory in real estate. You started off very hot, and I know it's still very hot for you. You were getting a lot of awards right out of the gate, 4 deals in 4 days in your first couple of years. You grew your business by 3,000%. How'd you make it happen?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Kat. It's nice to see you face to face. My business really has been very enjoyable when you look at the picture of it. Just the timeline of everything. Real estate is definitely not for the faint of heart. I always say that, but I really have been blessed with clients and referrals, and a great support team around me that has really helped me scale my business rather quickly and keep client service as a top priority. I think that is really something that sets me apart from other agents and other brokerages. It's just client service is number one. It is top tier for everybody across the board, and that goes from the first introduction or the first referral. And I think I've just had that slow build, and then now it's really paying off, a few years into the business, where you see that repeat client, or you start working with friends and family of your clients. And so it's just really rewarding to see now 5.5 years in the business, really where it's taken me and who it's put me in front of and who I've been able to help with their real estate goals. And it's just still a huge passion of mine. So I'm just really happy that I get to do it every day.
Yes. Well, congratulations on your many successes. And most recently, you've expanded your team, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Can you
So
tell us about that? Yeah.
yeah, so a couple years into the business, I have a dental hygiene background, and so I am a licensed hygienist, but I haven't practiced since 2020. And my husband and I were getting ready to start our active duty with the Air Force. So he is a service member, and we had a 4-year stint of active duty in DC. So that was something that I knew was upcoming. And it was, of course, right around the time when my business was now scaled to full time versus part time, and getting ready to add on more clients. I wanted to, of course, keep that level of client service where it was at. So that was the summer of 2021. And we were stationed in Virginia. And so I knew that I needed help. And I reached out to one of my past classmates from Detroit Mercy School of Dentistry. And she was also at a point in her hygiene career that she wasn't feeling, like that was her true calling. And I said, well, why don't you come shadow me and see if it's a good fit for you? And now she's coming up on her 3rd-year anniversary with me. She's, taken her clients and my clients together. And so now we're at the point where her and I are both busy with our clients. And so we recently added a 3rd team member, and we are now known as Azimi & Co., which I'm very proud of. And our 3rd team member is also a veteran agent, very successful in her own right and has a ton of experience and knowledge. So it was a very easy decision to add her on and bring her along with the team and continue to grow and scale our clients' needs.
Well, congratulations. It's so exciting to see that continued growth that you're having. I'd love to talk about the client services and focusing on the client. When you're meeting with someone for the first time, whether they're buying or selling, what does that meeting look like with you?
Yeah, so recently there's been some changes in the industry and with the National Association of Realtors at a national scale. And so it's really important that education is at the forefront of those buyer consultations and those seller consultations. So I like to equip my potential clients with as much information as possible. We have a lot of branded materials that will walk a buyer through what to anticipate when purchasing a home, what to be aware of, what they need as far as a pre approval standpoint, and then all of those associated parties that would be part of your transaction. On the flip side, with the seller, it's the same thing. We want to sit down and really go over what selling your home looks like. A lot of my clients, well, I would say 50-50, but about half of them, haven't sold in 10 to 20 years. So the process looks a lot different. A lot of it needs to be a refresher. And then on the flip side, I have a lot of clients that are simultaneously trying to buy and sell. So there's a lot more that goes into a client that needs to, sell before they buy, or they want to buy before they sell, if there's, updates or things they want to do to the future property. So it's really about equipping my clients with information, past experience, client reviews, other scenarios that I've been involved with that I can help guide my clients and let them know that, hey, this isn't my first time doing this. I want to be creative, and there's always, a solution. So education is big. I think that's just something that's always been ingrained in me. So I really try to pass that along to my clients before the process, during, and afterwards.
So, in terms of like education and advice, what advice would you give to a first-time home buyer? And then maybe what advice would you give to a first-time seller?
Yeah, so for a first-time home buyer, it's really important to know your budget, know your wants versus your needs, and then really figuring out your timeline of, are you currently renting? Do you currently own? Are you currently living with friends or family? Like, what are your options? Because it always sounds really exciting, like, hey, I'm ready to buy a house, let's go look. And then you start looking, and then the more you look, the more you kind of unravel, what their full situation looks like. And that can end up, just with letting people down or not having the proper expectations. If you see a home that we tour and you say, I want to write an offer, and then we find out it's above your budget, or the seller needs to live in the home after closing, but your lease ends in 45 days, and now you don't even have the opportunity to go after that home because it doesn't align with your goals and your personal situation. So again, that buyer consultation is really important to lay out those facts and really lay out a timeline so that everyone is on the same page and has the proper expectations, so that it's enjoyable from start to end. And then on the flip side, for a first-time seller, it is really exciting, 9 times out of 10 right now, because people that have bought in the last, 3 to 6 years have a lot of equity in their homes. So a lot of times those conversations are very positive, very encouraging, because what it looks like of what they could potentially profit from that first investment home. And that's what really got me excited about real estate, was just the opportunity to let real estate work for you and let your home and your equity provide for your next homes and your next real estate goals with that smart initial investment or that smart first home purchase. And I've witnessed that so many times, and it's such a good reminder of why real estate works when it's used properly for people to excel financially. So when you're going to go and sell your first home, there's, again, another guide that I give my clients. There's another set of timelines and expectations so that everyone's on the same page. But a big thing with selling, and again, with the recent updates, is regarding commission, because previously it was more expected that the seller pay for both sides of the commission. It's always been negotiable. It is now legally negotiable. But that is something that you want to have a conversation with, and just outlining what it looks like to pay a buyer's agent and a listing agent as a seller versus one or the other. So that's, again, just equipping them with knowledge and then helping them make the final decision.
I'm curious what kind of trends you're seeing right now, because I'm shopping for a home right now, so I'm kind of seeing it from like my own viewpoint, but I'm kind of curious what you're seeing. Are houses seem to still be going pretty quickly. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I cover a pretty large territory. I'm born and raised in Michigan, so I'm very familiar with a lot of different territories. I would say about 80% of my business is Oakland County, 10 in Wayne, 10 in Macomb, maybe a little less because I'll do Genesee, Livingston, etc. But overall, the market itself for buyers is still competitive because of the last two Fed meetings where rates have slightly dropped. They've maintained, we have clients that are just under 6% or right at 6%, where 12 months ago you were at 7 to 7.25, almost 7.5 for an interest rate. So again, just the buying power from a buyer's perspective is a lot more favorable this year than it was last. We still have an inventory shortage like we have for the past, 4 years at this point. And I don't really see that changing in the next 18 to 24 months, just because of population growth and just the amount of people that are coming into the age of home buying and home selling.
Can you think of a particularly rewarding or challenging transaction that you facilitated?
There's a lot. Most you just kind of push to the back of your brain. But I mean, no deal is the same. That's also a great part of this industry and this career, is that no two deals are the same, regardless of how many you do. But there's always something in every transaction. None of them go 100% smooth. But I would say overall, it's about setting the clear expectations and having all of the additional parties on the same page. So consistent communication, between the lender and the title company, and between the buyer and the buyer's agent, or the listing agent and the title company, because a lot of times you'll have two title companies, not one. So you have, 3 to 5 other parties involved in the transaction. So if everyone's not on the same page and consistently communicating, that's where the headaches come up, 9 times out of 10. But as far as a challenge, I would say most recently, I have a client that was contingent on selling their home before purchasing. So you're still able to put in offers. You just have to, let the other side know that it is a contingent offer on another property selling. So that one's, a little bit more challenging because now you have a lot more emotions in the game, and it's more of a domino effect. So now you have pressure to sell the house, pressure to keep the other house under contract. You still have the question mark of, the seller could accept another offer with someone that isn't contingent, and then your client just went through everything emotionally and financially to get their house listed, prepped, on the market. So that is something that I run into, like I said, quite often, but it is always more challenging when that comes up.
So when you have a client in that scenario, kind of how do you set them up for the proper mindset for kind of this emotionally charged experience?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, you want to make sure that they feel like they've found the right next property. You don't want them to feel rushed because they don't need to be rushed. They still have to sell their home. So you really want to do your due diligence and take your time and make sure that it is the right home for them going forward. You want to make sure you communicate with the other side. There's a lot of emotion at stake here. However, my clients are qualified because of A, B, and C. We would love to make this work because of X, Y, and Z. It's that communication and that transparency of just this is where we're at. And, you write a strong offer and you move from there. And that's what I tell my clients. And then on the flip side, when you go to sell, you want to be priced not, you definitely don't want to underprice the home, but you want to be competitive with the price point. And then there's all these stipulations within the contract of timelines and dates. So you really want to make sure that the client's aware of we need this by this date or that by that date. And then, I'm a firm believer that there's the right house at the right price out there for everybody and every budget. So at some point, you can only analyze and prep so much, and the rest of it you have to know that there is a risk because financially you're not able to afford two homes, and that's okay. That's common, let alone affording one home. But that's the situation you're in, and we don't want to stretch you financially in one area and not another and then set you up for failure.
What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned in real estate?
Read and reread your contracts. That's really what it is, because at the end of the day, we're not attorneys. We can't act as an attorney to any of our clients, but everything we're signing is a legally binding document. And now that there's a national spotlight on agents and how everyone is paid, it's even more important that you're reading and rereading your contracts because, again, as a real estate agent, you do not get paid until the property closes. So we do tons and tons of legwork and back end work that is not compensated until 30 to 60 to 90 plus days away. And if you're not reading your contracts and you're not protecting yourself, and then it comes to close or you get to the inspection and you didn't read your contract, now you've done yourself a disservice and you've done your client a disservice.
I think that's great advice, especially for maybe people who have been in this industry for a while. I think it's so easy to get into like routines and habits, but the routine and habit that you should have is to, double check everything.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And now a lot of the forms are changing. So the verbiage is different than it was 3 months ago. So again, you want to make sure that you're up to date on all of the changes and that you're protecting yourself legally and your clients.
Mm-hmm. And then, Brooke, on the subject of routines and habits, are there any that you have that help drive your success? Like, do you have a secret sauce?
I think consistency, I think it's different for everyone. Personally, I have to be active. I need some type of exercise routine. So, this morning I went for a nice long walk and then I did some yoga and I try to eat breakfast every morning, get all my water in, read my daily devotional, check in with my team. We have a bunch of calendars and a bunch of accountability worksheets that we work off of. So those are just daily check-ins so that, nothing slips through the cracks. And again, it's all about having everyone on the same page. But I would say just finding a routine is a challenge sometimes, I think, because our schedules are so hectic and they are a little bit unpredictable. That as long as you pick one or two things, because I think you can also get caught up in trying to do everything and it's just not attainable every single day. Pick a few things that are important to you, re-energize you, and, try to stay accountable and either write them down, check them off, put them on your computer, something that is trackable and measurable is always something more likely to be achievable.
Do you have any like apps or, computer programs that you like to use to help you keep track of these things?
Google Calendar. If I shared my screen with you right now, it would probably stress you out, because everyone that sees it is like, "What is that?" Very color coordinated, very down to the 15 minutes. And then as far as apps, I don't use any apps really other than like my work apps because I'm already on my phone so much that I don't I find that I'm not as accountable if I have another app. I've tried them, but I think because I'm just always on my phone, it's like I'd rather do something that's pen and paper or something non-digital because I am so attached to my phone.
I think that's super insightful that you notice that about yourself. And I'm a pen and paper type of a gal too. So I've never put that maybe it's because my phone's a distraction, but that
Mhm.
might have something to do with it. Brooke, are there any real estate myths out there that you would like to bust?
Have you heard any?
Oh, I mean, I hear like, I don't know, I hear a lot of things that other real estate agents say, that are the myths that they bust. But I guess I don't wanna color your opinion. Or is there, like, or even just kind of, like, misinformation out there that you think should be dispelled?
I think I mean, there's a couple. It is a tough industry because like my phone will ring and I will pick it up and I'm getting better with boundaries, but I'll pick it up and get really invested on who's on the other line. And I've had even just today probably 4 calls. 2 of them are probably spam, that are like these equity lenders that wanna reach out and say, "Do you have any properties off market?" It's very hard to filter who's real and who's not at this point because of technology, and I've become more aware of it because I will get calls off signs, I will get calls off my websites because we are trained to be very visible because we want to be approachable. We want to be accessible to anyone who needs real estate, right? But at the same time, I wonder how much of my day I'm spending filtering through these other potential leads that are probably not legitimate. So I would say there's a couple of apps. I don't use it. I have someone on my team that uses it. It's Forewarn, and you can actually screen calls and pull up background on people. So I think safety is a big thing. I'm a little off topic. It's not really a myth, but
Oh, no, I think this is great. Let's go.
it is something to be aware of, and it's something that I'm trying to be more aware of because I don't like to say no to anyone because I've seen how the power of yes and helping clients and helping other people that reach out do translate to my business. But sometimes it's hard to filter like who's legitimate and who's not. And like I said, that has probably been an hour of my day today. So it's not every day, but like yesterday I had someone reach out through my website, um and that actually turned into a real lead. But like I didn't know that person, someone had told them about me. So, they pay off. So that's where it's like, in real estate, you're only as good as your last deal. So a lot of us have this scarcity mindset, and I'm trying to get away from that and trust my past clients and trust my client service level. And, I think it's just an innate response from all of us when you're commission based and when you are self self-driven. We're all entrepreneurs, right? And so you don't want to miss an opportunity, but at the same time, at what expense are you willing to dive into it?
I think that's so important to bring up, and I totally see the catch-22 that, manifests there. I it's like an election year, so we all get all the spammy calls and texts. So you're getting that on top of everything else. And I've always
Mhm.
thought about, agents, you have your phone numbers out there, you have your emails out there so that you can have business, but then also like the robocallers are even more easily accessible, um and I feel for you. And like, business idea for somebody in real estate is to, like, maybe make some sort of sophisticated call screening thing for you guys. Or even, I think some people, this is just funny, and I think this is just funny human behavior. I think the way some people email and or text, they just sound like spam even though they're not spam. Um, and so, so you have to kind of just be generous with your time. But I'm also sure that at a certain point, you will probably grow your business to an extent that you either have a system, or you might just not have time for it, for some of these things.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the balance,
Hmm.
like, because yesterday's was an official lead, then today it's like psychologically you're like, "Oh, well, maybe this is another one," you know? And it's all about momentum in real estate. And so it's easy to say, "Oh, well, this could be another one or that could be another one." But I think, like you said, with the type of screening process, I think the forewarning app is really good. I just need to get it for myself, but I always just like to text it to my colleague and like, hey, can you check this number for me? So because my information is so accessible, I'll get calls or texts to show properties. And what's really interesting is when people will push back because I have laid ground rules of I need to see a pre-approval and I need a copy of your driver's license. And it's shocking to me how many people push back on that and like, oh, why do you need my information? And I'm like, well, you just called me and you want me to show you a property sight unseen. I've never met you. So it's like, I think, again, shifting that perspective and reminding them, like, I'm offering you my time free and removing myself from other business opportunities to show a stranger a home. I need some type of verification that A, you're a real human, and B, you don't have a criminal history. It's like, or people at open houses that don't want to sign in on sheets, but yet they're willing to walk around someone's home that they live in on a daily basis, but don't want to give up information. So I think that is not meant to be aggressive or harsh, but I think that's just a reminder to people that it is, it's a group effort, right? Like, sellers are just as vulnerable as people walking through a house, and agents are just as vulnerable meeting someone they don't know.
For sure. I think it's one of those things where, like, both sides need to enter with goodwill, right?
Mhm.
And you have to protect yourself. There, of course, unfortunately, have been stories where real estate agents have had terrible things happen to them, because somebody had ill will. And I think it's only smart that you try to protect yourself. And I mean, I don't think a pre-approval is asking for too much. I knew from talking to all these agents, like when I started looking for a house, I needed to be pre-approved. And my lender was like, okay, your agent might want this first. Your agent might like, and he set up all this stuff. And my agent is a little more relaxed than maybe the picture he painted, which is totally okay. I was ready for either scenario. Um, but I do think it's wise that you create a system where you're protected. I know other women, their system has been to do a consultation at like a coffee shop first,
Mhm.
or to see that they're living, breathing in real life, or they don't go to things alone. And I hate that we have to be so protective of ourselves, but then, since that is the reality of the world, I think it's also frustrating that there's pushback,
Mhm. Yeah. So I guess that would be not a myth, but just a, learn from my mistakes. And as an agent, don't be afraid to ask for credentials and don't be afraid to ask for verification of IDs because we're doing a lot at no cost, and it is more important to protect yourself physically and your sanity than it is to go show a house to a potential maybe. And now with these, updated NAR settlement regulations, something has to be signed prior to showing a home. All buyer's agents have to have something signed prior to showing a home. So if you're getting calls and people want you to drop everything at the drop of a hat, you do need to go through that extra step to have something signed before showing a property. So I think that is one good thing that has come from these settlements too.
Yeah. And to your point about, people being hesitant or resistant to sign it at an open house, I'll just share my story. Like, I went to an open house in July, like when we were just like baby starting to look. And it was like the dreaded sign in book. I'm like, oh gosh. I said to I'll put in my info, I'll get spammed. You guys, I got one email from that agent and it was a thank you for going to the open house. I never got spammed. I never got a call, and so I think just I'm putting that out there because, like, I don't know what you think you're gonna get, but you're probably just gonna get a thank you, you
Mhm.
know? Like, um, listen, if you have a Facebook account, like, I'm pretty sure they've sold my phone number, and that's why I get all the spammy, whatever. So, like, your
Mhm.
ship has sailed, on that. So I think people should just do all agents a favor and sign in on the open house book.
I appreciate that. And legally, there has to be an unsubscribe button or an opt out
Yeah.
button if they are sending you something. So, like you said, if you get one and you're not about it, you just click the button and move on.
For
So,
sure, for sure. Um, Brooke, I feel like you've mentioned some challenges already, but I'm wondering if there's kind of like a major challenge that you or maybe someone or your team is facing in real estate and how you're working to overcome it.
I think like deal flow wise, stuff like I said, stuff always comes up, but we're pretty good at being proactive and staying on top of deal flow. So I wouldn't say there's any, so to speak, challenges currently. Of course, there's always minute things, but not that I've been in it a decade or anything, but I've been in it over a half a decade now. So there's like, it takes a lot to ruffle my feathers. uh, as far as deal challenges go, I would say as a team, it's been really exciting to kind of adjust and pull from my past leadership skills to be a better leader and be a better team lead. So I think personally, we're working through, how do I best pull out the best from people on my team? How do I really emphasize their strengths to accommodate for my weaknesses and vice versa? And really just that gel and cohesion of having a successful team and hopefully continuing to grow that team successfully, because teams are hard in real estate. At least from my experience and what people I've talked to and things like that. So it's really important for me, like anything I do, I don't want to fail, just like a lot of other people, but you can't fail if you don't try. So for me personally, just really trying to hone in on my leadership skills and make my team the best possible, and also make the other agents on my team feel empowered and successful to continue to grow their businesses.
Oh, that's so wonderful. They're so lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
Lucky to have them.
aw. So we are going into the last quarter of 2024. I'm wondering how your goals have gone for this year, and are you starting to look ahead to 2025?
Yeah, this year's been really exciting. We did move back from Virginia personally a few months ago. So it was that transition because I was licensed in Virginia and DC as well as Michigan. So a lot of my time was commuting back and forth. And so now I'm grateful to say that I don't have to do that. And I'm really proud to say that we have already beat our goal for this year, heading into quarter four. And so definitely looking ahead to 2025, definitely trying to set goals that are realistic, but at the same time, really scary. Because our broker always says, like, if you're making goals and you're hitting them at 90% or higher or 70% or higher, then they're not big enough. And I am definitely a type A, where like a 70 is like a C minus, like that's not cutting it. Um, but I think it is a good reminder to just challenge yourself and really put into perspective and draw back on what you were able to do, in the past years with your clients, and just where the market's heading and where your personal lives are heading. Because again, in real estate, if you work with people your past clients or referrals, a lot of them are going through similar life phases that you are. And so it is one of my favorite things to be able to be alongside my clients going through similar things that I'm going through. So just keeping that in mind, because as I get older and as my team gets older, so do our friends and family. So a lot of the same scenarios pop up and are repeated. And so I think that is something to really draw on for your business too, to see where everyone's at in life and where you're at in life and how you can help, again, service those friends and family and clients better.
Curious about you having worked in this kind of dual location. Was that a pretty eye-opening experience for you in terms of like really having to be conscious of your time, especially with all the travel involved?
Definitely. Yeah, I traveled for 3.5 years every other week back and forth to DC. So that was probably, I think I added up when I first came home, I think it was about 30 hours, um, 20 to 30 hours a week I was getting back. So the first month I was just like, I have so much time. What do I do with all this time? Because I wasn't spending an hour to the airport, an hour before boarding, an hour in flight, an hour getting home. That's 4 hours of my day, 4 to 5, every other week. And then everything else that goes into it, booking your flights, coordinating showings, appointments when I'm not here. So it's definitely helped me with, being ultra organized, I think, especially with my time and my calendar. But I'm grateful that I have some more time to invest in my business and my clients now that I'm not traveling.
And are you going to continue to keep up your real estate license in Virginia, or are you solely focusing on Southeast Michigan?
Solely focusing on Michigan now. We were in Northern Virginia. I have family, but they're in Southern Virginia. So it's kind of like Michigan. It would be like living in Traverse City, but working down here.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't, I'm just going to, when that license expires, it expires, but I'll still work with like my clients that are in Virginia. I will, take care of them when they're ready to sell and have them referred to other colleagues in the state.
Brooke,
Mhm.
is there anything you're looking forward to for the rest of 2024? It doesn't have to be real estate related.
I mean, I have a lot of things to be thankful for and grateful for this year. And so I'm just grateful this year.
I love it.
Looking forward to continuing to grow my team and just continue to grow my business. I'm really grateful that I have such good support, and I'm really grateful that I still love this job so much. I didn't know how long it would last. You hear when you get into it, the failure rate versus the success rate is what everyone talks about. And so I really wasn't sure how long or how serious this would be. And I am just really happy that it's turned into what it has. And I want to continue to push and see what else it can become.
Well, that's so cool. I'm really excited for you and your continued success. Brooke, it has been so wonderful talking to you today. Would you like to let everyone know how they can follow you, how they could work with you?
Yes, thanks for having me on, Kat. And if you are looking to buy or sell, lease or build, you can find me on Instagram at Brooke_Azimi_realtor, or on my website, weareadobe.com/Brooke Azimi. Either of those are probably most quickly accessible, and both of them have my phone and email numbers listed.
Awesome. And we'll link it in the show notes so people can find you with a click. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Perfect. Thanks, Kat.
Thank you for listening to the Closing Table podcast brought to you by WindowStill. I'm Kat Schooler. Please be sure you're following our podcast on Apple or Spotify. And if you're part of our YouTube audience, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying our podcast, please feel free to leave us a comment or review. It helps us find more amazing listeners like you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.